At this point in time, the government is pretty well organized. There are laws for every possible problem, but some people still get into trouble by falling through the cracks. Mehran Nasseri was one of these unfortunate people. For some strange reason, he was stuck in an airport for 18 years. Over the years of Nasseri's imprisonment in the Charles de Gaulle International Airport quarters, people have had different ideas about how he ended up in this situation. To be more specific, Terminal 1. We need to go back in time to find out why Nasseri lived in an airport for 18 years. In 1973, Nasseri went to school at the University of Bradford in England. He took part in a student protest against the last Shah of Iran while he was in school. The Iranian government didn't like what he did, so when he went home to Iran in 1977, he was kicked out because of what he did abroad. He moved around Europe until 1981, when the Belgian government let him in. At this point, Nasseri looked for a country in Europe that would give him political asylum so he could ask the United Nations for help with his situation in Iran. Because he was sent away, he became a refugee, which gave him the right to apply for citizenship in European countries. Since he had spent many years studying in England, he decided to become a British citizen and move there. So, in 1988, he planned to take a plane to France and then another plane from France to England. Once he got to the Charles de Gaulle International Airport, he lost the papers that showed he was a refugee. Without these papers, he couldn't go into or out of any country. An airport is an international space, which means that it is not a country. This means that you don't need any papers to live or travel there, but you can't live without the right papers. He was lost and didn't know a single word of French. He tried to make money until someone tried to help him. From what the people who worked at the airport said, it seemed like he never really wanted to leave the airport. He made a living by doing small jobs for cash in the airport and eating at the airport's restaurant, mostly McDonald's. He cleaned himself in the public bathrooms and spent most of his time reading books and watching other people at the airport. After a few years, he gave up hope because he knew he would die in that airport, never getting to smell the fresh air one last time or kiss the ground. It's important to say that Nasseri couldn't leave the airport or that he wasn't allowed to go outside. Christian Bourget, a French lawyer for human rights, heard about Nasseri's case at some point. Bourget took up Nasseri's case and tried to get him out of his strange personal hell. Christian quickly found the hole that Nasseri was stuck in. Nasseri had to go to Belgium in person to get new papers that said he was a refugee. If he couldn't leave the airport, he would never be able to get those papers and would never be able to leave the airport. Christian Bourget worked on the problem for more than 10 years before finally getting Belgium to send the replacement papers to Nasseri in 1999. He would have been able to stay in France if he had done this. Surprisingly, when Nasseri finally got the right papers, he turned them down because he thought they were fake, so he stayed at the airport. At that point, the airport's bosses thought that Nasseri had gone crazy from spending so much time inside. In the end, Nasseri had to be taken out of the airport by force in 2006 because he was sick and had to go to the hospital. That was the first time since 1988 that he had left the airport. After he got better, the right papers were given to him and he was told what had happened. Nasseri's story shows that even though we live in a civilized time, we are still crazy and stuck in a political system that kills people without their knowledge. This story was also the basis for the great movie, The Terminal, which shows what Nasseri's life was like during these 18 years. In 2014, when the movie came out, Nasseri was still stuck in the airport. The people who made the movie talked to him and asked for permission to use his story. In 2005, he was paid more than $300,000 for the right to use his story.